This house is actually 102 years old. Yes.
经常在小印度一带活动的王贝利，对于老店屋总有莫名的感动。
I would always admire the shophouses around Mustafa's. I've always found that very fascinating that families used to live in these shophouses and then sell their wares, groceries on the ground floor.
小印度一带有无数战前的2层和3层店屋和房子。机缘巧合之下，王贝利在罗威路上发现了这栋外表看起来毫不起眼的老屋。
I walked through the doors and I saw the tiles and I thought they look handmade to me.
好奇心驱使之下，王贝利进而发现这栋陈旧的老屋其实已经有102年历史，而且正在等待有新的买家。
It was just by serendipity that I walked through the front doors and the rest is history. Those Chinese Baroque elements, a little courtyard, a nice stairway. There was just something about the proportions that I felt very at home in.
眼前的这栋老店屋让王贝利怦然心动，他毅然决定砸下300万元把它买下。
I feel for a house that had been overlooked and ignored for so long. In January 2021, I received the keys, and for that moment in time, the house was mine.
然而买下它后，王贝利发现老店屋的状况非常原始。
It had been abandoned for 5 years. Before it was abandoned, it was a signcraft business. So the house had undergone some rough trades, and everything looked like it needed to be torn off, really, or polished or cleaned up.
为了更了解这栋老屋背后的故事，王贝利也翻阅历史，做了不少研究。
It was many, many wrong turns until I spoke to a shophouse historian who then found the original plans of the house for me.
这间大约2000平方英尺的老店屋建于1919年，它是由20世纪初期著名建筑师 J.B. Westerholt 设计的，是罗威路最后搭建的2间店屋之一。
I had a very strong vision from the start how I wanted this house to be renovated. I wanted to keep as much of the original elements intact as possible.
与其将它翻新成现代建筑物，王贝利更希望还原老屋的历史和精神。
I wanted very much to preserve the original tiles on the ground floor, and I also felt that it was important to retain these traces of its hardworking past as part of the story of the house.
王贝利花费50万元和1年的时间，把这间被时间冰封的老屋修复成原有的模样，展现出它100年前的风雅。
So I named the house Baroque House because of its Chinese Baroque facade. We know Baroque to be highly embellished, and so definitely the decision was to choose furniture that had a little bit of that extra punch in detail.
这栋老屋独特的中式巴洛克建筑风格，是建筑师受到欧洲文化的影响后对古典建筑的重新诠释。
It's been in the same family for 100 years. So what you're walking through today is a house that's been frozen in time. These tiles are special because of the way they have been weathered.
王贝利希望让更多人走进老屋，发掘老屋的原始魅力。每个月，王贝利都会在这栋老屋里主办活动和进行导览。
As we move further into the house, we see some specimens of these tiles that are so perfectly preserved and with the central motif just sticking out like that.
Is it like different material?
That's it, it's probably a different material. The staircase in the dining room is a floating staircase.
What do you mean by
The floating staircase. It actually floats, it's hollow at the bottom. There are floating staircases around a lot of shophouses in Singapore, but very often when they commercialize, they tear off the staircase in the middle of the house and then they build one that goes out from the front of the house, right? So that's why I say this house is still a house.
在王贝利的导览讲解下，这些公众犹如走进了时光隧道，了解到所有的老屋不只是老屋而已。
If you join me and look up to the left, so typically found on the outside of shophouses, we found this decorative motif on the inside of this one. The people who sold the house to me were not aware of its existence.
I was told that the ceilings upstairs are rotten, so one weekend I decided that I would have them removed. And we discovered a beautiful end gable with a floral motif that extends the whole length of the shophouse. It was akin to discovering a treasure inside the house.
曾经被遗忘、尘封于时光的老屋，在王贝利的用心之下，再次找到了新生命。
I seek for this space to be a space where we can have a lot of intellectual and cultural dialogue. And so I've deliberately left some space in the house open for flexibility of expression and to allow the artists and intellectuals who come through the space to be able to express themselves. It still has, much potential for future development. I look forward to its continued metamorphosis.